This is the OFN NFL Preview Show on Our Lads Football Network. I'm Greg DePalma. He's Mark Lawrence at Playbook.com. Week 6 in the NFL, Mark. Not that everybody's played sick. I don't even know how things are going schedule-wise. This COVID thing is making a mockery of our schedule.
Well, if you think it's making a mockery of our schedule, tell me what week number it is in college football.
Yeah. I don't even want to go there.
Really, huh?
I haven't even been able to do any college football shows this year because I haven't missed a college football season in years, but I just can't get started. It's like I don't know how to get started, you know? I mean, I'm busy doing other things, don't get me wrong, but it's just weird.
Well, with the SEC lighting up the scoreboard and 3 of the Power 5 conferences in play, once I believe that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 join the fray,
Yeah.
I think it'll be some pretty competitive college football
Yeah.
games. But in the meantime, it's a hodgepodge, and as we talked about at the onset of the show, you never know what week it is in college football.
Yeah, because when is what is it, Mountain West and the MAC? They're also playing too, right?
Yeah, they're going to play mini schedules. I mean, I think the MAC is playing it like as few as 4 or 6 games.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know why, but they're going to do it nonetheless. I think probably just from the sake of recruiting and putting a couple extra dollars in the coffer, I would guess.
Okay. All right. Well, as far as the NFL is concerned, again, week 6, and we start with our coverage with your hometown team, the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns get their big win over a quality Indianapolis team after, a very convincing win in Dallas the week prior. So Cleveland is now officially for real, but they are going into Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. They are just 1-5, 1-5-1. Straight up in the last 7 against Pittsburgh. But they've covered 5 of those 7 games. The spread right now is 3.5. And we talked already about this with Pittsburgh, and now it's time to talk even more about it. Pittsburgh is 4-0 this year against teams with a combined 3-15-1 record. I'm going with Cleveland here. I'll take those 3.5. I'll buy my half point. I'll take Cleveland in 4. So even if they lose, I might be able to still cover this game. But I like the way Cleveland's going right now.
I agree with you, Greg. And in fact, you've got a Pittsburgh team that has not only faced the Sisters of the Poor, but a Pittsburgh team that threatens to go 5-0. That would be for the first time since 1978.
Wow.
When they beat the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl.
That's surprising.
Yes, it is. And I'm going to go so far as to say this Pittsburgh team is nothing like the team in 78 that beat the Dallas Cowboys, largely because of the benefit of a very soft schedule, if you will. And this Cleveland football team, I like the way they're playing right now. They're playing footloose and fancy-free with a game plan. Kevin Stefanski has really turned the football program around. A lot of great schemes. And what he's doing that really counts is that he's pounding the ball on the ground. The Browns are the second-ranked team in the league in rush attempts per game. And the reason I call that out is if you look at last year in the NFL, the top 10 teams that were ranked by rush attempts per game, 9 of them made the playoffs. In fact, the first
you said running doesn't matter in the NFL anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It means everything in the National Football League because it sets up everything else. Look at what Baker Mayfield's done this year with a well-balanced offense and obviously a better offensive line. But the running game has really opened up the passing game, and that goes hand in hand with one another. So that adage remains true. You run the ball, you stop the run, you win the football game.
All right, now let's stay in the AFC North with one of those teams. The team also at the top, Baltimore. We're near the top because Baltimore is the undefeated team. Pittsburgh is the undefeated team. But Baltimore is a 7.5-point favorite in Philly. Philly's a 3-1 money line dog in this one. Look, Baltimore, we've chronicled this line, this trend for this season before. They're now 6-0-2 against the spread their last 8 as a road favorite. Lamar Jackson has won 11 out of 13 on the road as a starter. So all of that looks really good for Baltimore, especially when you're only giving up 7. I only say only because Baltimore's an explosive team, and Philly's kind of Philly this year. They're not playing well. But a couple things to note with the Eagles, and that is that they did compete. They got back into that game in the second half against Pittsburgh to make it a game. And they did that with a completely new offensive line. I mean, they got 4 offensive line guys on IR, and the 5th guy, Lane Johnson's now banged up and may not play from week to week. So they're going to go up against Baltimore's defense. So there's a lot not to like there, and there's no home crowd cheering for you or going against Baltimore. So there's a lot to be really concerned about. But interesting, the one trend that Eagles have that might work in their favor. They've covered 7 straight as a dog of 4 or more points after allowing 35 or more points. I really like taking Baltimore in this spot because the first trend that we talked about, and they just seem to be able to cover these games and win these games. And I know Philly's banged up, not just offensively, but defensively. But I don't know. I just got a feeling that Eagles are going to make this game close.
I think the Eagles are worth a play on the money line in this game, Greg, for a couple of reasons. Number one, Baltimore, name and reputation. Their offense ranks number 24 in the National Football League this year.
What's up with that?
You tell me. They're averaging just 339 yards a game. This is nothing fearful about Baltimore this year like it was last year. And on the flip side, you've got a Philadelphia Eagle team. Let's call it what it is, a first-place Philadelphia Eagles.
That's right.
Team.
They are a first-place team. Yes.
Exactly. But what really works here is the Eagles are now in their 3rd consecutive home game in a row. And when they're at home, they will be playing the first of 3 consecutive home games in a row. And in that role, they are 5-0 straight up and against the spread in the first of 3 straight home games. So now here you got a healthy 7-point home dog in a role where they've won straight up 5 consecutive times in this situation here. And you could call it what it is, dire straits. The Eagles cannot afford losses here. I realize that this is the garbage division of the league, and likely a team that wins it will probably maybe have a losing record. But Philadelphia certainly doesn't want to be that team. I think Baltimore is suspect this football season here. Too much success last year, and I think it's catching up with them this season.
Yeah, I actually broke down on Monday on the OFN Today with Ryan Dunleavy from the New York Post. We have that show every week, and I broke because I was really, I was looking at the stats every week, and I'm watching the games, and I'm like, there's something wrong. And I really think I think it has to do with the running game, because they go out and they get Dobbins early, and everybody gushes about what a steal, the Baltimore Ravens. How could a team like this, that running team, and they get Dobbins? Watch out now. This is a crime. So it's like, well, where's J.K. Dobbins? Why isn't he playing? What's going on? So I looked at the stats, and let's not forget that the playoff loss to Tennessee, Greg Roman was roasted for abandoning the running game early in that game. Lamar Jackson threw the ball like 59 times in the game, which was ridiculous. And he was the leading rusher because he was either throwing the ball or running all over the place. And I think Ingram and Edwards had like a combined 9 rushing attempts, something like that. So I looked at it, and this year, compared to last year, Baltimore's top 3 running backs averaged 24 attempts a game. This year, they're down to 19 attempts a game. I mean, that's 5 attempts a game less when you are beating most of the teams you're playing. You've got leads in most of these games. You just drafted Dobbins, who has, every time he touches the ball, he usually has like a 7-yard average. I don't understand what Greg Roman's doing. I don't understand what this offense is doing when Jackson is their leading rusher every game. I don't understand it.
Well, it goes hand in hand with what we just talked about, being able to be at the top of the league in rush attempts per game. Last year, Baltimore was number 1 in the league in rush attempts per game. San Francisco, number 2. You saw the kind of seasons they had. Baltimore is slumping, and they are not anywhere near that this year. So, not professing to be a rocket scientist, but the numbers are the numbers.
Yeah.
They speak for themselves. And, Baltimore is not hitting in all cylinders this year. I think you got a real hungry Philadelphia Eagle football team in this game.
Yeah, the injuries. They definitely they need to make sure Slay, who had the concussion last week, and Fletcher Cox had a leg injury next week. They have to get those guys on the field for sure. Bad enough they got the offensive line injuries, but Cox and Slay are two of their top defenders, and you don't want to lose those guys in this matchup. By the way, the Eagles, if they can upset Baltimore, they will not go on the road, just so everybody knows again. Not that they're on the road this week, but they won't have to go on the road until November 15th. And their next 3 games after this, 2 games with the Giants and a home game against Dallas. So if they can find a way in first place already to beat Baltimore, things are looking pretty good for the Eagles coming up.
Well, you'd have to say that this is obviously the time of the season for Philadelphia, with that fortuitous schedule being what it is right now and playing in this god-awful NFC East division. Things couldn't get any better for Philadelphia, despite the fact that they're just a one-win team.
Speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, no more Dak Prescott. And I'm just sorry, not one of the members of the media that has a handkerchief standing by because Dak Prescott lost out on a gazillion amount of dollars. You know, Dak,
so he makes a quadrillion instead.
Yeah, I mean, Dak had an opportunity to sign for what, $33 million or something like that, and nope, yes. I'm worth 40. You got to pay me 40, so I'll go with 1 year. I'll risk it. Well, he risked it, and this is what happens when you risk it. Because he could have put together, that would have been like what, $150 million contract or something like that over 5 or 6 years and a huge guarantee. But you want to, quibble over between 33 and 40 and all that. So this is what happens. No handkerchief for Dak Prescott as far as I'm concerned. But Dallas still wins the game with Andy Dalton. And we all knew that when Dalton came to Dallas, if he was needed, that this was one of the better moves in the NFL for a backup quarterback taking over a team that has the weapons that Dallas has. Now, the offensive line is a big issue. There ain't no question about it. I mean, they got banged up guys on IR, and maybe we'll see affect them more now that a more mobile Prescott is gone. But, hey, Prescott got hurt. So this is what happens when your offensive line isn't allowing you to just stand there all day and throw the ball like Prescott's had the luxury the last few years. But the Cowboys, look, I understand they haven't covered a game yet, but they were a 2.5-point home dog to Arizona. We've talked about this Arizona team as a favorite, especially on the road. And even though they beat the Jets easy last week, I didn't look at that game and came away like, oh, wow, that's a good Arizona team. I just didn't. And now Chandler Jones is out for the year. I mean, one of the best pass rushers in the league. And here's the big trend. Care of Playbook.com, Books A Million, Barnes & Nobles, Playbook.com, Playbook Magazine, Arizona, 0-14 against the spread as favorites after allowing 10 points or less. Take Dallas. Give me the 3. Oh, and by the way, the Cowboys, the last 2 times they were a home underdog in the last 2 years, they won those games by a combined 84-28.
Yeah, I think this is an outstanding spot for the Dallas Cowboys here this week. Number one, we always talk about the backup quarterback rallying around the stock. Okay, this is the role for Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, to shine in this particular week. And you take a look here also at what Arizona does not do well. That's perform on Monday nights. They're 0-7 to the spread when they have a 500 or better record on Monday nights. They're carrying a lot of weight this season, and so much weight so far this year, Greg, that at the beginning of the season, before this game even played, when they put lines out in Vegas, the Dallas Cowboys were a 7-point favorite in the contest. So you can see how much of a swing there's been based upon the results on the season thus far. I think this is a great value play for Dallas. I love the situation with Andy Dalton being what it is for the moment here. And I think Arizona Cardinals are catching way, way, way too much love from the odds makers thus far this football season here. I think Dallas wins this football game comfortably.
This is also the 3rd straight road game for Arizona.
Yep.
So keep that in mind.
So there's a lot of nice handicapping factors inside this game.
Okay, sticking out in the NFC West with the big matchup, Rams and the Niners. And the Rams are a 3.5-point favorite in this one in San Francisco. And wow, after what the Niners looked like against Miami, the Rams should be a 3.5-point favorite because the Niners just lost back-to-back home games to the Eagles and the Dolphins. So things aren't good. And, the injuries, you did have to feel it was going to catch up to them sooner or later because those injuries were just incredible. Bosa, Ford, Thomas, and the defensive backs. I mean, that poor kid, Allen, that went up against the Dolphins. I mean, I haven't seen somebody picked on like that in a long time. And good for the Dolphins for realizing that was the way to go about it. Here's a really good trend to couple. Actually, there are a few good trends that work in this game for the Rams. San Francisco's 2-5. Excuse me, 2-15 against the spread as a losing team versus a team seeking revenge. Games 5-8. Love those games 5-8 trends. Rams have covered 5 straight with division revenge, and they're 7-2 against the spread in their last 9 as a road favorite. If you want a really big one, they're 14-2 against the spread as winning team versus a division opponent off a double-digit straight-up loss. Yes, I like the Rams. Give the 3 at San Francisco.
It's the odd stat of the week inside this game, Greg. And I'm going to be on the other side of the game, by the way, but I'll get there. The odd stat of the week is San Francisco this year at home is 0-3. San Francisco in the state of New York is 2-0. Who would have ever thought that? But that's
New York
what it
teams are probably New York fans would like them to move.
Yeah, they sure would. They probably trade both of their teams for just this San Francisco team.
Yeah.
If it was a trade available to them. But what you've also got working here in San Francisco's favor is the red-faced, embarrassed home dog. Beginning of the season, again, before a game even played, San Francisco was a 4.5-point favorite in the game. Now there's a big 7-point swing in the line plus because of what's happened here. The other thing is they are a defending Super Bowl losing team. And when those defending Super Bowl losing teams dress up as home dogs, coming off a loss of 20 or more points in their previous game, they're 5-1 to the spread in this particular role here. I think this is a chance for San Francisco to wipe a lot of egg off of their face last week. We don't know yet who's going to be quarterbacking, if it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo again. Is it going to be C.J. Beathard, Nick Mullins? We don't know what the situation happens to be. But I think it's more of a Kyle Shanahan type play, the head coach in this football game here. I don't see this team going to 0-4 in their first 4 home games of the season here. The Rams are playing some pretty good football, and I have to admit that. We liked them at the beginning of the year as being a value team. They're playing really well right now in that particular situation, in that spot. But given just the makeup of what happened in the last games for each of these 2 football teams, I'm going to play the value with San Francisco.
Okay, let's now go to Green Bay and Tampa Bay. And the Packers are a 2.5-point favorite on the road. When I first looked at the spread, I'm like, I think Tampa Bay, Green Bay hasn't lost yet. Maybe they're overdue. And Tampa Bay, they should have beat Chicago. They had settled for field goals instead of touchdowns. And the Bears put that little quick 14 points on them at the end of the first half. And that's really what doomed Tampa Bay. It looks like Godwin could be back this week for the Bucs as well. So they haven't really played much at all with Godwin and Evans at the same time this year. So that'll be important when it happens. But the Packers, looks like Devontae Adams has been practicing and ready to return, so that's huge. And the trends are just downright ugly for Tampa Bay in this spot. Not only are they 0-11 against the spread as a non-division dog of more than 1 point following a straight-up favored loss, but how about this? I haven't seen this one yet. I got a trifecta of Tampa Bay games 5-8, a trifecta. They're 0-8 versus the opposition off a straight-up win. They're 1-12. These are all against the spread. They're 1-12 versus the opposition off a non-division. And they're 3-16 as dogs of less than 10 versus opponent off a straight-up ATS win. So games 5-8, all 3 of those weigh heavily against the Bucs. Packers have not dropped an ATS at all yet this year. They've had the bye to come in to get a little healthier. I'm probably going with the Packers here.
Well, the Packers are changing roles here in this game, Greg, and from the standpoint that they've been on the road 2 times this year. They won both of those games, each straight up as a dog. Now they're going to dress up as a favorite here into a Tom Brady football team that's anxious to get back after blowing straight up as a favorite last week. I'm going to call it a couple Tom Brady stats here. Yes, they were with Bill Belichick, and yes, they were with the Patriots, but it's still Tom Brady. In his best role as a dog off a loss in his NFL career, he is 13-1 against the spread. And you take a look here also, I think there's a coaching mismatch in this football game. Matt Lafleur against Bruce Aryans. Bruce Aryans is a solid football head coach. He's 9-3 straight up and against the NFC North. Plus, if you take a look at Aryans as a home dog in his career in the National Football League, he is 9-1 straight up and to the spread in non-division games. He's also, as a home dog, 7-1 straight up and against the spread against teams coming off a winning cover. I think the edge here is in the coaching in this football game. You got two quarterbacks that can trade numbers back and forth. Rodgers and Brady, Brady and Rodgers, they're both Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and they're going to each bring whatever good number you want to look for. You're going to find it in each of these two quarterbacks. I think you had an embarrassed football team in Tampa Bay at home in a role reversal with the better coach in Bruce Aryans. I'm buying the Bucs in this game.
Injury notes: Vita Vea could be a big loss for the Bucs. He's out for the year. That's going to really hurt their interior up front. And we mentioned Adams. Defensively for the Packers, Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary, they did not play in that game against the Bears. They've had a few extra days of rest, and those two guys probably the top defenders on the Packers team. So keep an eye on whether or not any of those key players are able to play for Green Bay. And speaking of Matt Lafleur, do you think the Atlanta Falcons wish they had not let Matt Lafleur go? Because, as a matter of fact, I remember saying it at the time. I just didn't understand why. Okay, you lost Shanahan and he brought McKay with him, and I get all of that. But you had Matt LaFleur there, and he was the quarterback coach. He was the quarterback coach of one of those top assistant jobs there. And he was like the next guy in line. All you had to do, hire Matt LaFleur. He knows the system, seamless. But what happened? They went ahead, whether it was Quinn or whoever made the decision. No, we're going to bring in Steve Sarkisian from college and make him bring him into a system he's never had before and a team. So that was the beginning of the end for Atlanta. A couple of years later, Dan Quinn is gone. They haven't won yet. They're at Minnesota. Vikings are a 3.5-point favorite. This might be my best game of the year so far. I absolutely love this game. And I know how high you always are on Mike Zimmer, so I'm pretty sure I know who you're taking here. And I don't care that Cook's out because Madison proved last week that, yeah, he's not Cook, but, hey, he still had over 100 yards rushing, and I expect him to do the same thing this week in this game. So we're going to throw some knockout trends for you. And I even liked Minnesota before the trends. Mike Zimmer, 20-4 against the spread as a home favorite versus non-division team. Mike Zimmer, 24-4-1 against the spread in non-division games following losses. Also, Minnesota, 11-1 against the spread in their last 12 at home following a straight-up loss. And with a bye next week, they're 10-1 against the spread, their last 11 prior to a bye. I'm throwing all those beautiful trends into a game that I liked anyway because the Vikings, even though they lost to Seattle, proved that there's still talent on this team. They're still coached well. This is not a team that anywhere near as bad as their record indicates. Atlanta is, because the coaching situation's a mess. The defense is a mess. The DBs are a mess. Kirk Cousins should have a big day throwing the ball. Actually, he should have a good day in general, running and throwing. And Minnesota's desperate for a win, too. They still have a shot, reasonably, to go into the bye, feeling like we can get into the playoffs, feeling good that it's not over yet, like the Falcons season's over. I just love the Vikings in this spot, given 3.
I think it's a great spot for Minnesota. In fact, I'm a little bit surprised the number's this low.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know what Atlanta's done to keep this number at where it is, but you didn't even mention the fact that Minnesota has won the money 6 times in a row after facing Seattle, or that Atlanta has lost the money 5 times in a row against the NFC North. That's just a little bit of extra whipped cream on all of everything that you laid out there. Then
Okay.
you've got Raheem Morris taking over here, trying to dig this team out of a 0-5 hole. And if you take a look at Morris, what he's done when he was a head coach in the National Football League, okay, his last 10 games in non-division games, he was 0-10 straight up and 1-9 to the spread.
That's not bad.
Yeah, there is just an avalanche of good things here on Minnesota and nothing to find about Atlanta. Sometimes of which, when the day's over, you say, "What on earth happened? We had everything working for us, and the Avalanche went the other way." But knowing that you have all this ammo going into a football game is exactly where you want to be. Pretty confident about just that, and I'm with you. I'm pretty confident about Minnesota on Sunday.
All right. Quickly, just some quick notes on the other games. Chicago, Carolina. That's actually a big game now. Both teams, nobody would have thought that they'd be in the spot that they are. And Carolina's at New Orleans next week. So if they can win this game, and Chicago's at the Rams on Monday night so whoever wins this game has a pretty good one next week. First time Carolina is favored. Keep an eye on injuries for Carolina. Burns and Gross Matos and Kawan Short and cornerback Dante Jackson got hurt last week. Nobody knows if they're going to play yet, but those are four of their top defensive players. And Matt Rule's done a fantastic job with this team already, especially on defense. These are all the key reasons why. So I would definitely keep an eye on all those injuries for Carolina. First time they're a favorite this year. And both teams have done a good job in the dog role in this very spot. It'll be interesting to see how Carolina does now as a favorite.
Well, that's the key to this game to me, Greg, is the fact that they're changing roles. They're changing lanes, if you will. Carolina comes into this contest off 3 consecutive straight up underdog wins. Now they become the favorite. We ran that into our database, and teams in this particular role are just 14-1 against the spread in a non-division game. I think there's a lot to like about Chicago in this contest here, and especially handling the role of a role change like Carolina is put into this particular week. I think Chicago pulls the upset in this contest.
Okay. Aren't you surprised Tennessee is only a 3-point favorite against Houston? I know that they had the key guys out because of COVID. Didn't bother them against Buffalo winning by 30. I'm not trying to sit here and say that I'm all on Tennessee because I am concerned with some of the trends for Tennessee following these big wins and things of that nature that I've seen. But Houston also has bad trends, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think with Romeo Crennel that they're going to just turn this thing around. I don't know. I'm just kind of surprised they're only a 3-point home favorite.
Well, for openers, you've got Tennessee coming off a Tuesday game with much less preparation time. And you haven't had but before that game, there were only 7 other games that had played on a Tuesday. So nobody knows how to prepare for football games. Your body clock is completely off because of things like that.
Okay.
So, that could work obviously against Tennessee in this particular role here. And Houston might be a born-again type team. We saw it last week with no Bill O'Brien. They performed well. Romeo Crennel has really struggled in division games. In fact, when he's coming off a win the last 10 times, he's 0-10 straight up and 1-9 to the spread. Not a lot of good Romeo Crennel numbers there. But there's a reason that this number is as short as it is. You got an undefeated team playing a struggling football team. But again, you got a Houston football team that feels like they could be born again in this game. I'm going to pass and watch the football game and see exactly how it all plays out.
And then Kansas City Buffalo is a huge game on Monday night. I get a kick out of everybody. All of a sudden, the Chiefs lose, and wait a second, what's wrong with Patrick Mahomes? And what's wrong with the Chiefs? And what are you talking about? They lost one game, and yeah, I picked the Raiders last week, and yes, it was because I thought Kansas City, because we talked about this, that hey, you know what? They had these big games all in a row, and it's going to happen. You're going to have, especially you got Buffalo next week. It's going to happen. You played a Raider team, it killed all the time. And so, but come on. I mean, it was one bad half of football. It's going to happen. But it's a big game against Buffalo because Buffalo, Monday Night Football at home. It's unfortunate that there's no home crowd to salivate it. But look, Tre'Davious White did not play in the game against Tennessee. And if he doesn't play against Kansas City, that's a huge loss for Buffalo. He is their lockdown corner. Kansas City in this spot, 3.5 points at Buffalo. It's a tricky one.
I think it's a good spot here for Buffalo in this game, Greg. You
For
take a look at
Buffalo,
the.
okay.
Yes, I do. I think it's a good spot. First of all, defending Super Bowl champions, when they take that first loss of the season, they tend to sulk. I mean, they do not bounce back up off the mat at all. They're just 12 and 25 straight up the following game.
Interesting.
4 and 16, if you will, if that loss occurred at home. 8 straight consecutive losses in a row inside that 4 and 16. So you're asking Kansas City to get back up here after coming up flat in their last football game. And I realize Buffalo also was flat in their last contest here. But you got a Buffalo football team here that has been really, really good at home on Monday nights. They're 6-2 to the number the last 8 games. They took a beating in their last football game as well here. I think Buffalo comes and plays with everything they've got against Kansas City, and we'll see if that Super Bowl loser, first loss of the season syndrome doesn't bite Kansas City again in this game.
Also, some injury notes to keep an eye on in a couple of games. Denver and the Patriots. Cam Newton came back to practice, so it is looking, or at least I think he's going to or has. But I heard something positive about Cam Newton. If that's the case, then it looks like he'll probably play on Sunday. So that's a better deal because 9 points, even because Drew Lock looked like he's going to be back for Denver. If Cam plays, I'd probably, if I was taking a game, I'd take New England. But without Cam, I definitely wouldn't give 9 with either of those backups for the Patriots. But Melvin Gordon might be suspended now. Noah Fant's not in the lineup. Of course, Sanders is out for the year, the wide receiver. Is that Sanders? What's his name? The wide receiver? Sutton, not Sanders.
Court Sutton, yes.
Yeah, Stephon Gilmore's got COVID still for the Bengals and the Colts. Leonard Costanzo did not play last week in the loss to Cleveland. So, and that's the first time the Colts haven't had their entire offensive line together for a while. But they've clobbered their 2 opponents at home this year. And Cincinnati, I mean, Joe Burrow's had a really good start, but when Jonah Williams went out last week and didn't play, that was forget it, because their offensive line is without question was the biggest issue coming into the season. Burrow's getting sacked left and right. Now you take Jonah Williams out, and it was no surprise what happened to him last week. And the Colts actually have a pretty good defense, so I don't know. Joe Burrow, they got to keep him healthy. And that's why I was really surprised when you went out and you knew Joe Burrow was going to be your quarterback, why they didn't make a better effort to find more talent along the offensive line to protect him.
Well, that'll come. For sure that'll come. In fact, they're going to learn their lesson in a hard way this year because of it. A very, very young offensive line that's going to only get better with experience. But my goodness, they're giving up sacks in droves, 22 of them so far this year. Joe Burrow is becoming a human piñata as we're speaking right now. That can't continue this football season. Indianapolis, as you mentioned, at home. How about when they're coming off a loss and taking on a losing non-division team also off a loss? They're 11-0, straight up end of the number in this particular role here. I think Colts roll in this game.
And the only other injury notes I want to throw in is Jacksonville. Miles Jack, Josh Allen, C.J. Henderson. Wow, you lose those guys, you don't play with them, you're in big trouble for Jacksonville. DJ Shark also limped off the field last week, so I'm not sure he's going to play. And that's, I'm sure, part of the reason why Detroit's a 3.5-point favorite on the road.
Detroit looks a lot to me like Arizona does. Installing them as road favorites, I think, is a mistake. In fact, they haven't even played close to the level of Arizona, yet they're still a road favorite in the football game. And you've got here also Detroit, when they're playing with rest in the first of back-to-back road games, 1-12 to the spread. I just think Jacksonville could be a sleepy dog in this situation. Not so much a play on Jacksonville, but a play against Matt Patricia, who's sitting on the hot seat in a road favorite role.
Yeah, he could be the next guy.
Yes.
If they were to lose this week, that could be it. Because now that coaches are being fired, teams are starting to figure out. Now, that's the only thing that is weak. And I understand why the NFL does it, but that's the one thing that's weak about you can't tamper. And I like I said, I understand it, but I don't know. At least when the Jets made their move to fire McCagnon in the offseason, it made sense because they could go out and get Joe Douglas before anybody else did when the season ended. It didn't even begin yet. So that makes sense. Or whether you fire a coach at that point of year, but firing coaches during the season, it's it does make it easier for you to do certain things, but it's not like you can talk to any assistant coaches or anybody for that matter.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. All these coaching maneuvers and situations we're going to see, and they're going to be falling heads here. Matt Patricia, Adam Gase. Adam Gase is probably on the hottest of hot seats. And how ironic would it be if he ended up being told, "Don't get on the flight back to New York. Stay at home in Miami, where you came from the
He'll
beginning."
love that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Except nobody in Miami will endear themselves to him, but
Their
nonetheless.
next three opponents:
Who's that?
Buffalo, Kansas City, and the Patriots.
Oh my goodness. Well, the question is, the guillotine is ready to fall. It's just a question of when does the guillotine fall? Adam Gase is not going to live to see the end of the season.
All right, Mark, playbook.com. You also, of course, have your weekly emails that if you subscribe, you get the newsletters. Those are awesome to get for both pro and college football. And your coffee
The
cup,
Coffee Club? Yep.
coffee club emails. Those are great as well. Those come out every day.
Yeah, the Coffee Club is a real nice little touch into what's going on in the sports betting world. It's free, by the way, to anybody that subscribes to a Playbook football newsletter. So check it out online at playbook.com.
Talk to you next week, Mark.
Hey, Greg, have a good one. Enjoy the games and be well.